However, we're going to move into the SEC, the big SEC game. We've got number 1 Alabama going up against Ole Miss. And I'm going to throw this out there to you guys. This could be the game where if we're looking at an upset on the number 1 team, this could be it. Because I'm looking at a graphic right now from the mothership ESPN. And last season for Alabama against Ole Miss, they had 5 turnovers, tied for the most that they've had in Nick Saban's 125 games. They had 24 points off of turnovers, second most in Nick Saban's 125 games. And then special teams EPA, a -8, the third worst in Nick Saban's 125 games. I'll be plain and simple. Does Ole Miss, does Chad Kelly get the upset here against the Tide?
They have a chance, and that chance is if Chad Kelly comes out and plays like he did last year. 18 for 33, 341 yards, and 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. If he does not turn the ball over and is concise with his passes, is reading the defense like he did last year, that's going to be the key for this. I mean,
or at the beginning of the Florida State game?
Or at the beginning of the Florida State game, because when he is not turning the ball over, he's able to drive that ball down the field. He's able to be very accurate with his passes, and if he's able to do that, that's obviously going to help Ole Miss's chance, because last year, if he plays the same way, I think he'll be able to tear up this Alabama defense, because he did it last year, and there's really no changes outside of Laquan Treadwell for this and Tunsil as well for this Ole Miss offense. I think that Ole Miss here, if Chad Kelly is able to keep the ball in Ole Miss's hands, I think that's going to be the big difference here.
I think the difference in this game is Jalen Hurts, and I think it's going to depend on how he's going to play. He's played really, really well in the first 2 games. He started in game number 2, so he started last week. Week 1, he was really impressive against USC, but I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he plays against an Ole Miss defense that I think not bad. I mean, not bad, but not great. We saw what they did against Florida State towards the end in the second half, but I think that he's going to be the key in this one, because it's going to be interesting. He's a freshman. He is a freshman, but will he play like a freshman? I think it comes down to him, and if he is going to get rattled or not, because we have to remember on the other side, he's going up a guy who's not a freshman, a guy who has been here now, and a guy who thinks he is the best quarterback in the league right now, and that's Chad Kelly. I think it's going to be really an interesting matchup, but I think Jalen Hurts is the X factor in this game.
I agree, but I think the thing that Chad Kelly needs to do is realize that he is the senior here. He beat this Alabama team last year. Like I said, 18 for 33, 341 yards, and 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. If he's able to step out on the field, keep the ball in Ole Miss's hands, able to drive the ball down the field, I don't think Jalen Hurts will be able to keep up with that pace, because Ole Miss is probably the best defense, probably a better defense than USC here. I think that they'll be able to rattle him more, and then with the composure that Chad Kelly has, because he's been in the situation before, I think that's going to be able to lead Ole Miss to victory if they're able to. I don't know if they will win, but if they are going to win, that's going to have to happen.
And I just want to say really quickly, this game is being played in Mississippi, so it's not a home game for Alabama, and it's going to be interesting to see, I think, for me, with my X factor being Jalen Hurts, how the young guy is able to handle himself on the road going into a hostile environment.
And it's funny because right now I'm looking at kind of the history of wins and losses for Alabama. Yeah, Ole Miss won the last 2, but I kind of look at it, and ever since 2004 up until 2014, it was all Alabama. All Alabama. And then the last 2, Ole Miss kind of took it away from the Crimson Tide. But the last time Alabama was number 1 and played Ole Miss was in 2013, 2012. Killed them each time. Only like 14 total points in 2 years.
And you're kind of talking about, like, Alabama's been dominant, since 2004. They've been dominant this whole time. I mean, they have 11 losses. I was
taking a snapshot.
11 losses to Alabama. I mean, they're 48-11 and 2 against Ole Miss. So I think that Ole Miss will definitely have some confidence. I think that will definitely play into the factor here. I think Chad Kelly's experience will definitely play into it. But then again,
he's got to put up. He has to put up, because there's one thing. If Alabama wins this game, they're going to be primed to just walk right into the SEC title game. And I know people are going to say, well, Ricky, you're kind of crowning them. You're crowning them before you should be, but
Ricky will crown someone new in 3 weeks. Trust me.
Well, I look at it this way. Based on from what I've seen 2 games in, and this could all change in this week because I could see something different. Arkansas played well, but they played a 1-point victory against Louisiana Tech, and they had to take TCU to double overtime. Guess what? Alabama's way better than both those teams. Arkansas doesn't stand a chance. Tennessee should have lost to Appalachian State. They started slow against Virginia Tech, got the win. Guess what? Bama's better than both those teams. They'll get the win. Texas A&M, they've impressed me. I thought it'd be a lost season for them. That could be a close one. I got Alabama winning. And then LSU doesn't look like the team that we all thought they would be.
I think for Ole Miss, too, an interesting stat to look at is Chad Kelly last year, 341 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, ran one in, and that was extremely impressive and a big reason why they were able to get the win because Chad Kelly was so on point. And I think that Alabama's defense is going to do a really good job of taking away the running game for Ole Miss. So I think it's going to be all up to Chad Kelly to be able to make plays. And one guy he's not going to have to throw to, Laquan Treadwell.
Yeah, and one thing, again, with Alabama, I mean, I think if they do lose a game this year, it's definitely going to be to Ole Miss because Ole Miss, they kind of, I don't want to say they have the blueprint to beat Alabama, but they have beat them 2 years in a row. They still have Chad Kelly, who's probably going to be one of the better quarterbacks they go up against this year, and I think Chad Kelly, with the experience from last year, will definitely play into it. I think that's going to be huge for this game. I think that if Ole Miss is able to get to him early and not turn the ball over, I think that's going to be huge for Ole Miss.
Well, and the one thing that we haven't brought up was, I mean, look at just even last week for Alabama. They win 38-10 over Western Kentucky, but we saw some problems with the offense so much to where Nick Saban looked to be getting into an argument with OC Lane Kiffin, and when asked about it in his presser the Monday after the game, he let you know it wasn't an argument. It was a good old ass chewing. Do you think that kind of plays in and we kind of see a little bit, not like a domino effect, but maybe a snowball effect, I'll say, and that could be a problem with that offense moving into this game?
They're professionals. I mean, this is Nick Saban, who's been to so many national championships. I mean, Lane Kiffin was a former head coach in the NFL and NCAA. I think that's going to kind of stay away. I think they'll be able to put it aside and step up and try to get this victory because they know that any personal beef can be handled outside of the game.
But I'm not saying like they're kind of the little argument that they had, because Nick Saban, he'll fucking chew your ass out if he seems fit. I'm talking about the struggles on offense that they had against the Western Kentucky. Do we see those same struggles
Ricky,
this game?
Let's get real, dude. 52-8 or whatever what'd they even win by? Was that the score of a different game?
That was you're talking about the Trojan game. I'm looking at 38-10 and you played the Hilltoppers from Western Kentucky.
Ricky, it doesn't frickin' matter. They scored 38 points. The other team scored 10. They won the game. That's going to happen every once in a while.
But they have killed this team?
Here's what you're doing. You're making a small deal into a big deal. Don't do it because it's not a big deal. He chewed him out because he needed to.
Oh, no, I'm not.
And then and this week it's going to be completely different. They forgot about it. The offense is going to have to work better this week. If not, then we have an issue.
And that's what I'm saying. Are we going to see? I'm not talking about the chewing out. Put that aside. I'm talking about the struggles that we saw on the field, because this is a Western Kentucky team that arguably we were expecting Alabama to beat them by more than they did. Now you're going up against a tougher opponent, an SEC opponent in Ole Miss. That's what I'm getting at.
I don't think anything has to do with the stuff that happened last week. I think it has to do with more what happened with last season. Ole Miss has beat them 2 years in a row. Ole Miss went into their house last year, and Chad Kelly didn't turn the ball over. I think that it's going to be more about what you need to do about Ole Miss, and you got to put Western Kentucky out of your mind. This is the SEC now. This isn't Western Kentucky anymore. I think that's going to be the bigger thing here. I think you just put all of that aside. I mean, even the USC game. I mean, you can get some confidence from that because they were a ranked opponent and you destroyed them. But I still think that all of that needs to be put aside because, I mean, this is still the SEC. You have to come to play every single week because this is probably the best conference in college football. Don't want to say that because Big Ten is still there.
I love the Big Ten, but the SEC is pretty dominant.
I still don't think that there's any worry because guess what? Sometimes you go out you have a rough offensive day, even against a team that's not all that great, but that happens sometimes. You still beat them. And it really doesn't matter how good you beat them or how poorly you beat them. Especially, you want to have the bad offensive day against a team like that where you're still going to win. Now this week, you know what you got to do. You know what's at stake. You know this is a must-win game. And you could lose this one. Everyone knew they weren't going to lose to the Hilltoppers, who had 22 carries for 23 yards. But I think that this week is going to be a big one. And I think that that's when an offense starts to click. That's when you see, is this offense for real? And I think that's what we also saw against USC, which I thought was really good. Alabama played a really good game against them. This week is going to be a must-win for them. I think the offense comes out and plays really well.
That's a sound damn logic from Brandon Swanson. I don't give that man too many props, but yeah, that's some logic. Right
Well,
there.
we'll end it just how I ended the FSU Louisville one. Who do you guys got winning? I'll give mine first. I got the Tide in this one. I don't care what happened 2 years ago. Alabama's number one again. Yeah, they have a freshman quarterback, but that defense is going to hold strong and force Chad Kelly into some mistakes.
I think Ole Miss has a chance if Chad Kelly can keep the ball on Ole Miss's side.
They have a
I've been
chance.
saying. Yeah, but I still think that Alabama's going to be able to put enough pressure on them and force some Chad Kelly mistakes here. And I think that Alabama will pull out the win.
I think Alabama wins. Not easily, but I think Alabama wins.
And that's just not Brandon's Roll Tide bias. He really thinks that they're going to win.
No, it's not. Yeah, because I think this Alabama defense, I think they're going to show up, this year as they didn't last year. I mean, they struggled, and that's one of the biggest things is there were some things, some lucky bounces that Ole Miss had for them last season, but this year it's going to be different. Alabama will not lose to a team 3 times in 3 appearances against that team. That's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen against Ole Miss. Roll Tide in this one for sure.
Well, and this is where you guys let us know down below. What do you guys think of this game? Who's going to be the bigger factor, Kelly or Hurst on the outside for the quarterback position for both teams? Let us know down below who you got winning.